Good morning, African Stars International School learners. I'm Miss Solvi, your grade 7 social studies teacher. Welcome to our 11th e-learning lesson of term 2. Today we are starting with a new topic, which is topic 5, the rise and the decline of empires and kingdoms. And we'll look at ancient Egypt for now. Before we start with our lesson, let us look at the answers to the previous activity, activity 4.4 on page 100 in your textbook. Question 1. Explain the differences between the origin of the sun and the Khoikhoi. Khoikhoi are the Nama people. The origin of the sun is still unknown. And all we know about the sun is that they are the first inhabitants of southern Africa. The Khoikhoi are thought to have migrated from Botswana and into Namibia, and some entered South Africa. Question 2. Draw two columns. Indicate the similarities and the differences between the lifestyles of the Nama and the Damara. Were there more similarities than the differences? And here is your table. This side, similarities and differences on this side. The similarity is that both followed the principle of communal land of ownership. They both lived in clans, and both of their clans joined together to form chiefdoms, and they were all self-sufficient, and they both farmed with small stock, the goats and the sheep, and had few cattle. And in both groups, men and women were skilled in one or another form of craft work. And the main language, they speak the similar languages. Differences: the Nama had a hereditary relationship, meaning that the son inherits the things of the father. And the Nama, the chief was the supreme leader. The Damara had no chiefs. The Nama were the nomadics, but the Damara were more settled. And formation of the villages was not the same. The Damara lived in permanent settlement, and the Nama people used to move around, and they only come together during the good seasons. The Damara, all the women played an important role in decision making. And the answer, if there are more similarities than differences, is that yes, there are more similarities than the differences. Okay, ancient Egypt. Ancient Egypt and Great Zimbabwe are one of the two civilizations that happened in Africa in the earlier times. So, civilization developed where people lived in large, well-organized groups, and where there is a ruler who established rules and laws for the people. And usually there is a division of labor, meaning that a specific sex, male people, do this kind of jobs which women or female people don't do. Okay, so empires were being ruled by emperors and kingdoms by the kings and the queens. The beginning of ancient civilization in ancient Egypt. So the Stone Age hunter-gatherers lived in North Africa about 150,000 years ago, before the Sahara became a desert, about 7,000 BC. So all this happened before the birth of Christ, or before Common Era. And the first farming communities settled along the Nile River before 5,500 BC. The Nile River flooded and created floodplain. So the floodplain are the areas which are closer to the rivers, and when the river is flooded, they are also filled with water, and when they dried up, the land was covered with a layer of thick, black, fertile soil. So the Nile River is the source of Egypt's civilization. And the fertile soil near the Nile River enabled the farmers in that area to grow crops such as wheat and barley, because the land was very fertile. Excellent farming and good supply of food made the population of people along the river to increase rapidly, meaning that the population started to increase. As population grew, some people were able to stop farming and specialize in different kinds of activities such as trading with other people and making tools and weapons. So when they started making their tools and weapons, they trade with the farmers and getting food in return, or they trade with other people who specialize in other types of activities. Other people became soldiers and others become priests, others become fishermen because they are at the river, and others become tailors. They started making clothes. They traded their goods or services, in case of the priests and the soldiers, with food. People such as the nobles is a title given to the rich people who owned land, and the merchants who traded became very rich and powerful. Merchants are like the business people. And these people, the nobles and the merchants, they began controlling the settlements because they were rich and they were also powerful, and they probably had soldiers who were looking after them. The first kings appeared by 3100 BC, the first kings in ancient Egypt. The kingdoms of ancient Egypt. Before ancient Egypt became a kingdom, it was first divided into Upper Egypt, which is the part which is on the southern part of the Nile River, and also the Lower Egypt, the area which is closer to the Mediterranean Sea, the far north of Africa. Ancient Egypt was united under its first king or pharaoh in the 3100 BC. And the title pharaoh is a title which is given to all the Egyptian kings. Egypt became the first united nation. So Egypt became the first united nation and also one of the earliest civilizations in human history. The history of ancient Egypt is divided into three main periods, which are identified by different kingdoms, and each kingdom is remembered for its own special achievements, which we will discuss later in the next lesson. So it is divided in the Old Kingdom, which happened between 2685 to 2200 years BC, and then the Middle Kingdom. It started at from 2040 until 1785 BC. Then followed by the New Kingdom, which was the last kingdom. It started from 1570 to 1085 BC. As you can see, it's like they're counting backward. And during the before Common Era time or the before Christ time, people used to count backward and not forward like what we are doing now. And as you can see, between 2200 and 2040 and also 1785 and 1570, you can see that there are missing years between, and that is just showing you that during that time ancient Egypt was weak, or it was either not having a ruler. Okay, now time for activity. You will do the topic 4 assessment, which is on page 101 in your textbook, but you are only doing question 2. Indicate the following statements indicate if the following statements are true or false, and if they are false, you have to explain why is it false. The sun lived mainly in southern region of the country. True or false? If it's false, you give the explanation. The Herero group that lived in the Kaako belt is called Himba. C. The origin of the Damara is still a mystery to historians. Is it true or false? If it's false, you give an explanation. The Topnas were Damara chiefdom. The Damara were pastoralists. Okay. We have come to the end of today's lesson. Answers to the activity will be provided in our next lesson. Remember to keep safe, wash your hands and avoid crowded places, in order to fight COVID-19. Thank you.